Welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast, your place for truckside chats and insights into the retriever game. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned handler, this podcast is another resource for tips, tricks, and insights from both the amateurs and professional trainers' perspectives. Each week, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of retriever training, sharing stories of success, overcoming challenges, and forging stronger bonds with our dogs. This is the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I'm Chris Rud, your host, fellow retriever enthusiast, and student of the game. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. It's been a fantastic day. I hope everybody's having a good time. We're filming this thing on July 11th, which is in the middle of, obviously July, for those that don't know how to use numbers. It's been a really good week. The heat has finally left, like insane Illinois heat, and been getting out and training every day, really enjoying it. So I hope you all are out there doing it as well. This episode, you probably all listening to it almost in August. So welcome to almost fall, not quite, but anyhow, today we got Mr. Ray from Purina on the podcast today. We're going to be talking a lot of Q&A. I sent out like 50,000, not really, probably like 15 text messages to a bunch of people that I respect and I figured would have a lot of really good questions. So I got some back. So we're going to do a Q&A with Ray. But Ray, before we do that, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. And why don't you give you a brief introduction? Because I know you've been on a lot of other retriever podcasts, and people don't know who you are. As they start to learn more about the game, they'll figure out that you and kind of that whole Lardy tree are a pretty big staple of the retriever game.
First of all, thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. The Reader's Digest version got my first Labrador when I was 14 years old, which hopefully the people are not good at numbers because it's been almost 30 years ago now, just shy of 30 years. So yeah, been at it for a long time. Kind of started through high school, ran some mostly hunt tests, and started dabbling in field trials, and then worked for a few different professionals, very well respected guys, Rick Stosky, Andy Attar, and then kind of settled with Mike Lardy and was with Mike for 14 or 15 years, where I got to run a lot of field trials and kind of head up the national efforts for probably the last 8 years I was with Mike, and extremely thankful for all the time I got to spend with everybody, and especially with getting to train with Mike every day and learn, and hopefully I've made him proud with what we've done. And now I've been with Purina for about 5 years, and that's kind of the quick version.
The quick version. So what's Mike doing now? Like, is he? Did I hear that he's retired, or is he still training some, or what's Mike doing?
He is retired. He has a German wire hair that he has started to compete in NAVDA with, and actually, I think next winter here, he still goes south in the wintertime, and he wants to try to run her in some master tests. She's a pretty cool dog, actually. She's obviously steady, does triples, does water blinds, all the stuff. So yeah, so pretty fun dog.
So Mike Lardy's going to be cruising around master test. Is he going to be able to like sit down, or is everybody just going to be like just swamping him?
I don't know. He might need he might get a Groucho Marx mask or something before.
Yeah, he needs to like totally go incognito, man. Just like totally hidden. And
well, he looks different. He doesn't. He's got a little bit of a beard now and so he doesn't quite look the same. So
he needs to match his dog. He needs a big beard. Like a big wire beard.
Exactly.
And they could dye it together or something.
A couple of years ago, I was running my dog in some hunt tests, and first one I went to was down in Thomasville, and one of the ladies said, "Oh, is this your first time? Are you enjoying yourself?" So it was. So he can probably sneak by too.
Yeah. That's funny. Out of context, if he's not on your TV screen, you're not going to know who he is.
Yeah.
But you don't know this, but one time you ran a queue with your dog recently. It might be like 2 or 3 years ago.
2 years.
You ran a queue in Madison,
Yep.
And I was the guy on. You probably don't remember the setup, but it was an indented triple on the water, and I was the
Yep.
guy throwing the short, really angle back bird. So
Okay.
I don't remember how
That
your
was
dog did, but
she ended up she did well. She got second. Thought she might have won, but that's not up to me. I was
yeah,
very happy. That was only the second qualifying she had run at that point, and yeah, so she got a jam in the first one, got second in that one. So that the good part about qualifying is first or second both gets you the same
yeah,
result. So I was very
yeah.
happy with that.
I've gotten 2 seconds in queues, and I accidentally texted somebody because when we got our second, I decided I wasn't going to run him anymore, and I texted somebody that to scratch the next weekend. I said, "Well, I won the Madison trial," and then went back and looked at the email and said, "What did I say? I won? I didn't win, but you feel like you won, even if you got a second."
Hmm.
And that's so I felt like I was the dumbest person in the world. I'm like, I have to I'm not confessing that I lied. I made a mistake, but I felt like I won.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was second place in a queue is always a good thing. So, what are you doing
Yeah, and
now
I
with
was
her?
well, I was about to run a couple opens here this summer with her, and she came in season 2 days ago, so that'll have to go on hold for a little bit. But she'll be out by should be out by August, so probably not Madison, but maybe second half of August. We'll try to give it a shot. Run her a couple times. It's kind of like the plumber with the leaky pipes. I got my own dog, and I barely have time to train her, so she doesn't get as much experience as most dogs her age would be. She just turned 5 actually, so she'd normally have a lot more experience and a lot more line time by now. But she's doing pretty good. She's been training really good the last few weeks, probably because she was about to come into season, as
Yeah, isn't that how it always is?
hormones can do. But yeah, so I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited the way she looks right now. She's been the most. I'd say she's acted the most trained she's ever has. So we'll see what happens when she comes out, and I'd love to run her in a few opens this late summer, early fall, and just see where we're at.
Yeah. So I mean, I know you travel quite a bit, right? Like you're always on the road. You pretty much just go to national events for work, and then you can still have some time to hit, weekend
Y-
events.
yes. So generally for Purina, I cover retriever stuff, spaniel stuff, and herding dogs. So border collies,
Wow.
sheep dogs, and cattle dogs. So if when you do all kind of the national level stuff across the board for all those, it keeps me fairly busy. This time of year is a little quieter, which is when I was trying to run her a little bit because and September is not horrible. August is there's a little bit here and there, but come October it's
Yeah, you
one
got
thing after another. Yep.
because you guys sponsor the Master Amateur or the Master National and all those
Correct.
things, right? Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
HRC, both grands, Master National, Master Amateur, National Derby, National Amateur, National Open, from the retriever stand side, and then the Springers have National Open, National Amateur. The Cockers have a National Open, National Amateur. Their
Hmm.
Boykins have a Upland National and a regular National.
Jeez.
And then there's about 4 major herding trials, plus they have a national finals. And yeah, so all that kind of
Are you hitting every one of those?
not. I mean, more than not, but there's a few like this fall coming up. There's I want to say there's like 3 at the same time, so
Oh
I
yeah,
can't be in
yeah,
everywhere. But luckily, I have 4 consultants that kind of work under me that I can send to different places too, and that helps. But the big ones like that, I try to get to most of them if I can.
yeah. Is Pat one of your consultants?
Yes.
Sometimes. So
Yep.
I have a story. Pat's going to be on the podcast in a couple weeks here, but um, my best friend Tyler Brenner, he was at the Grand, and I guess like for whatever reason, I don't know if you guys planned it. It was a good strategic move if you guys did plan this, but I guess you guys didn't hand the food out at the beginning like you normally do, and so Pat was or something happened to where Tyler and Dan didn't get their food at the beginning, whatever. So he
Okay.
calls me. He says, "Hey." there's this guy that's walking around. He's from Purina. He's this little guy that he's kind of like, I don't know much about him, but his name's Pat Burns, and like he was just so excited to meet Pat because he was giving food out. So anyway, like it kind of went a little viral in the little training group. So anyway, I'm just more or less I'm just saying this to embarrass Tyler because he was all like fanboyed up.
Well, and it's funny because so normally 100% I would be at the Grand. But there's a sheepdog trial in Utah, about an hour from Salt Lake City, that overlapped with the Grand being a little later this year. It was the exact same days, and we had a booth because the sheepdog trial. Now now that I got to think about it, I'm gonna get my numbers wrong, but they pull, I want to like over 10,000 spectators.
10,000 spectators?
Yeah, maybe it was 9,000. I mean, it's a lot. So myself and I don't know, you may have run into Kelsey Toth at some point along the line. She's another one of my consultants. So her and I went to Utah, and then of course Mike Botts, who also is he runs one of the Grand sites, so he's kind of busy. And then so I had Pat and my Jerry Cascio is my other guy. So those two were at the Grand, and
I
Kelsey
know Mike
and I
were
in Utah.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky. I mean, I have
dude.
some. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have 4 very good people, and Jerry Cascio, who you may not know as well, he's actually in the Hall of Fame as a Springer trainer. So it works great because I got him, and he helps a lot with the Cockers and the Springers, and then obviously Pat and Mike and Kelsey are hard workers and great people, and so I got a good team.
Very, very cool. So 10,000, I mean, we'll go down to 9,000 spectators. What was the thing that shocked you the most? I'm assuming you didn't, before Purina, have you ever went to any of the other breed trials and stuff?
I had not.
What was something that you're like, wow, I never thought about that, or just anything that was really interesting that the listeners would find cool?
I mean, it's all really cool. I mean, all these dogs running at the highest level of whatever it is. I mean, it's always, whether it's the Grand, the Master National, the National Open Championship, the Springer National, the Sheepdog National Finals. I mean, it's just the higher level of training and communication, and I mean, it's like everything's different, but it's similar. I mean, you have to have that level of communication with your dog, and the thoughtfulness and the training and the handling, and it's just really cool to see the people from the different venues and get to know them. And I mean, it's like the same people that you just didn't know yet, before you went there. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
it's really fun. It's all a little bit different, but it's all the same. You got the same personalities and the same mentality, and the dogs some of the dogs that just stand out a little bit above the others.
Is it pretty obvious to see the difference? Because I know, like, with things that are high level competition, like when you watch the Olympics, you're like, I can't tell the difference. But with those dogs, can you kind of tell a difference, or is it pretty much they all look the same?
No, you can tell the difference. I mean, when you go to a spaniel event or a sheepdog event, like the ones that are just, you can see that the ones that are just a little bit above, and the handlers that are just like, it's hard to explain without watching it, but it's just like they can read what's going to happen before it happens. And same thing, I think, with your, a lot of the really good retriever trainers. I mean, you know what's going to happen before the dog does, and you can adjust what you need to do or change your positioning, or, in the sheepdog deal, you're dealing with not only the dog, but you also have sheep that you're trying to, move around the course. And now you're dealing with 3 or 5 or 20 more little brains that have their own ideas. So watching the really good sheepdog people that not only know how to position the dog, but can tell what the sheep are about to do too, it's a pretty incredible.
Oh man, I'd love to see that. I'm into all dog games, but all I can think about as you're talking about this is the movie Babe. And like just waiting for like, then this pig just like talked to them, and the sheep did it all perfectly, and the guy shut the gate in the most dramatic fashion possible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's like that without the pig.
the pig. The pig is the pulled pork that they're cooking up for the 10,000 people.
And that's the thing. Like those things, they're like little festivals. I mean, there's multiple food trucks, there's vendors, there's all the different things and tents, and I mean, it's a festival. It's not just a field trial.
Yeah, very cool. Well, let's dive into some questions. They're kind of all over the place, but there's been like this big debate in our training group about the double T and whether you should do it or not. And I've heard people all over the spectrum on this, whether you should do double T or there's other sort of handling drills you could do. I'm curious, because I know it was at least in the videos, a foundational part of Lardy's, program. So, do you do the double T? Do what's your thoughts on all that?
Yes. The quick answer is yes. I do that. I've heard some other people mention some different drills. I can't really speak to the things that I haven't tried.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pretend like I know this one's better than that one or whatever. But I have done the double T for almost 30 years now.
For quite a while.
And I feel like that's a big step of progression. And I take a long time on that step to make sure everything's really good. I want really good. I guess the reason I like that is because of the repetition.
Mm-hmm.
So, we take everything we've done. We've done our pile work and our stop to pile and our cast, three-handed casting and all that sort of stuff. And now we just kind of take it and expand it to a bigger scale. And, you get to recheck all that stuff on the double T. You get to recheck if the forcing has gone properly, because if it hasn't, when you get back to 100 yards away, they're going to flare. They're not going to go back to the pile. You're going to see things that make you back up. All of a sudden your sit might get crooked or loopy, and it gives you opportunities to work on that. So I feel like it's a very important step, and I feel like the repetition that you get from the sends, the stops, the casting really gets you ready for pattern blinds, for the next step. So I do feel like I'm not going to sit here and say that somebody couldn't show me some drill that I thought was very useful as well, but having done it, and I feel like it's an important thing. And I've talked people into that said, oh, I just do a single T. Well, I think you're missing out on a step, because all of a sudden now you have two closer piles that they might not want to align to the back pile on, or you just get more opportunities to stop and go and cast. And, I think it really shows you how your foundation stuff has been done and sets you up to go forward. Like if you come off the double T with a loopy or a crooked sit, why would you expect it to be better on the next step?
Why would you be moving on? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't do a traditional double T. I do what we call as a mod T, because what I do is I put two back piles and two big over piles, but it's probably the same size as your double T. And I do it from different positions. So I'm getting them running past those two closer ones at different angles, angle back cast and stuff. But I think I'm trying to accomplish generally the same thing that you're trying to accomplish.
So with the two back piles, are you just lining to one or the other? Or are you stopping and casting from?
Yeah. So I start with just lining those two and helping them not suck to the two overs, and then I'll start handling them. And I have, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different home plates. And I start those, and so it's basically like a mini pattern blind, but you can get it as big as you need it to be. And then I go to either a 4-pole where it's just 4 that I'm working on angle, but I try to isolate each one of the things I'm trying to work on. So like when I go from the T to the mod T, I'm working on selecting 1 or 2 piles. So I'm switching to that that's the first time that they really have any angle back casting. And from there.
So
And that's when I really go ahead.
are you sending to one and then stopping and casting to the other one?
Yeah, so they have to learn to look at one, go to that one. That's what I established. And I'll do like 3 to 5 days of just that, and then I'll start stopping and casting angle backs and overs. So I'm still getting basically what you're getting sort of in your double T, but then I'm removing some of those things. I'm just trying to simplify the double T, I think, because when you have those 2 additional piles, you have 2 more points of suction that they got to go through. And then I go to pattern blinds where I have like my pattern blind is almost like a W drill, and I'm handling between all of them and doing that. But I'm trying to isolate different things versus trying to do them all in one more next step, which to me, I think it's all about knowing what you're trying to accomplish, right? I mean, you can put these drill configurations in anything, but you have to have all these certain things. They have to learn to cast out of suction. They got to learn to run past suction. They got to learn to change directions multiple times. To me, I'm just trying to make that a little bit simpler. But anyway, I don't even know why
it doesn't sound simpler.
It doesn't sound simpler?
I'm confused. No.
Well, anything that I say is confusing.
Okay.
Like trying to verbally talk about it,
Yeah.
Is,
no, I'd be interested to see. And I'm not trying to say that I'm not saying anything bad about it. It would be interesting. I mean, I get what you're talking about. It just, I'm trying to get I'd have to see it to really get a feel for it or a sense for it. But yes,
I'll
I mean,
take a picture.
It's the repetition.
I'll text it to you. Yeah.
It's the sends, the stops, the casting, the crispness of all those things, getting them to look out and target, getting them to run hard, getting them to stop quickly, getting them to cast. I mean, that's whatever the step is, right?
Yeah. So is pattern blinds the first time that the dog is starting to actually have to select a different pile than the one that they've pre-established?
Yes.
I think that's probably the only major difference. Because, well, I'll have to draw it out. We'll do it offline because I don't think I could. We'll just like go off into like crazy land here, but I'll draw it out and I'll show you what I'm doing.
I mean, I've heard of people like with split back piles, so that way when you cast, they're actually they're never just turning around and going straight back. Because I've heard people say that that's one of the things they don't like so much about the double T is anytime you give a back cast, they dig back. They just turn around and go straight back.
Yeah, that's exactly what mine is. It's 2 split back piles and then 2 overs like on the either side of it. So they never, from that point on, when they move from the single T to the mod T, they're never taking a straight back again.
Okay.
I mean, in that sense for that smaller,
which I think is a very valid thing because I mean that's one of the biggest things a dog with a lot of momentum and we deal with digging back with a lot of these dogs. That's one of the biggest issues we deal with for the remainder of their life, right? So, I mean, I can certainly see how if there's a good way to do that would be extremely useful.
That's kind of the point. As soon as you get through because like to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. To me, the T is where they're just learning the basic fundamentals of stopping, going back, and changing direction. Like that's all. Those are the only 2 things you're really trying to get. Because at some point you lose your over to a degree, and it all becomes different variations of angle back. You might disagree with that, and I'd love to hear your opinion. But
no, I agree with that. I mean, once you get out of that out of double T and swim by, and basically over doesn't really mean over.
Yeah, that's your Hail Mary. Go that way. At least give me something that way.
Exactly. So
yeah,
no,
it's interesting. Yeah, I'd love to. I'll draw it out and then you can tell me. Oh yeah, there's some validity to that, or I still think you should do the double T. And then my next dog, I'll do the double T. I haven't done it in a long time, but anyway, that was the first question, and we got like 27. And Perfect. Another thing that you're not going to want to hear, but I've been asking like people on Facebook for feedback, and they're like, an hour is too short. Can you go 2 hours? And I said, no way. But so don't feel like if we don't go very, or if we go long like that, we're putting.
I'm not worried about. We may need to stop for a refill then, but
No, I'll go down and get some whiskey too. All right. So double T, my buddy Josh will be. I don't know. I feel like I'm satisfied too with your answer. All right. One of the questions is there a certain point in training where you feel like you can tell a dog is great versus just good?
Ooh, that's a hmm. Now I got to think back because, I mean, I will, and I give everybody else the credit for this. I've been lucky enough to be around some great dogs, and I'm trying to think if you just always knew it, or if there was some time that was like, oh man, this one's really going to turn out to be great. Um, I have used this analogy before. When you're trying to run, get field champions, run at the national level, both open and amateur. You're looking for the top, what, 5% of
Mm-hmm.
Labradors,
Oh, I think
and
it's
I
less than
would
that.
less or even less than that. So I think there are 10% that probably from a really early age. This dog's got it. They have the it factor. They have the I think this dog's going to be great. And then you have 10% that just they're not going to cut. They're not going to be good enough. Doesn't mean they're not a bad dog or that they're a bad dog. It just means they're not going to be good enough for that level. And then there's about 80% in the middle. And those dogs, some of them turn out to be really good, and some of them don't. So we might have to define what greatness is before we can, because it's
knowing this person, it's winning. Like winning at whatever age they are at is probably. Well, I would say winning either a crown or an open, the national open, or even being an FC. I'd say that.
then I think that's I don't have a certain age, because there are times that dogs at 2 years old, you think, yeah, they're coming along. I don't want to quit yet, and then something clicks, and all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're a field champion, and you're running the nationals, and you think, man, boy, am I glad I didn't give up on this one. And then there's some of them you think are going to be really good when they're 2 years old, and they just don't get a lot better.
Yeah, that was their peak. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say Kenny Trott and I, who I'm sure some of you guys have heard of, who's another really good dog trainer that I've spent a fair amount of time with. We argue about what the difference between good and great a lot. So, he's, you get upwards of close to a 200-point all-age dog. I mean, to me, that's a great dog. And those dogs, I think you can probably tell along the way that, man, they just have something special. They just naturally always find their birds. They've always been good in the water. They're cooperative. I mean, there's all these different traits that we try to mold, but something just really, I would say, when you're going through the yard, something has to come easy, right? They're either okay. So say they don't have the greatest yard attitude, but man, they're birdie. They've always marked really good. They love to do it, but maybe they're not don't have the greatest yard attitude. Okay, I can work through that. Or, man, they may not be the greatest marker, but they have a great attitude, and they want to work with you, and they want to do the right thing, and they want to try hard. Through experience, those dogs, I mean, part of marking is experience too. It's not just the innate natural ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those dogs can all be, I think, can be molded. I'd rather have one that wants to work than probably the one that may be super talented that just really doesn't, that just wants to do their own thing every day. So, I mean, I feel like I've danced around the question a little bit, but
That's all right.
there's a portion of them that coming through as a derby dog, you think, man, this sky's the limit for this dog. And then there's some of them that really just keep building and building and building, and at the end of the day, they can turn out to be a great dog. So
yeah,
there's not a set answer. I mean, it's a little bit of a gut feeling, like, man, this dog doesn't mark very good. They hate to do yard work. They're not good in the water. They don't want to be a team player. I have a really hard time at any age thinking that dog's going to turn out to be a great dog.
Mm-hmm.
If they know where their birds are, they like the water, but maybe they just don't have the greatest blind attitude to start out with. well, I think I can do things to foster a better blind attitude and teach them how to run blinds. So that dog still has a chance to turn out to be a great dog.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So you kind of answered my follow-up was going to be like, when do you know that they're not going to make it?
Same kind of thing. I mean, it's just like, I mean, my dog right now that you saw in the like when she was 6 months old, I mean 4 or 5 months old, like I quit doing marks with her because she didn't even want to, she wouldn't retrieve. She'd chase it, she'd lay down and chew on it, she'd kind of half bring it back. As soon as she figured out like there was a rule, she didn't want to do it. You know, I'd put a long line on her to reel her in, and then she just wouldn't pick it up because she knew I was going to make her come back.
Yeah. I've been there with a few puppies. Yep.
And then as soon as I taught her, as soon as we got through force fetch, and she knew she didn't have a choice, then she did it right away. And force fetch, it wasn't a big fight. You know, I mean, she picked up on all the stuff very quickly. She's really smart, but you know, she kind of realized like, oh, if I don't do this, he can't make me do that. And as soon as there was rules set in place where like, you know, now you're going to pick it up because I told you and I can reinforce it, and you're going to come back because I told you to and I can reinforce it. All of a sudden, it just kind of like woke her up, and she was ready to play ball. So, you know, I've heard lots of stories of puppies that turned out to be field champions that didn't want to retrieve when they were little, or, you know, you'd have to throw a tennis ball or things like that. So I think attitude's a big part of it. Like if you can just see like, man, I just don't like this. I hate my life. I hate my job. I hate all of it. I think you can kind of tell, like, depending on what you're after, like that's probably not going to fall into that category. You know, if everything's a struggle all the way and it's just like, man, I don't look forward to getting up and going outside and working with you, and they don't like it. I mean, to me, that's got to be a little bit of you know, a little bit of a flag right there. Like, man, they don't want to work. I don't want to work them. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, as trainers and handlers, we want a dog that we want to be next to and work with. So if I don't get excited about wanting to go out and try to train it and make it better, and okay, well, so we have this little issue, and I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and we're gonna work through
figure it out. Yeah.
And it's like, man, I don't want to go out there today. You know, if that happens more than not, then I think no matter what stage you're at, that's probably a little bit of a tell for you right there.
Absolutely. All right, switching up topics. So one of my buddies said, I'm curious about the coolest place you have ran an event, nicest grounds club, or favorite local food spot, which is like 5 million questions in one, but you know, that's typical for him.
Boy, there's some really good properties all around. I gotta say one of my favorites is close to you, Charlie Hines' place in Wilmington, Illinois. I just love that property and the way it changes from spring to fall. So the way Charlie has a huge piece of water, and in the springtime when the water's high, there's not a lot of structure in it, right? It's just kind of a big,
super
intimidating
organic.
big, intimidating looking pond. And as the summer goes on, the water drops, so these sandbars start to show up. You get more points, you get more structure in the water, and it's like when you go there to run a trial in the spring versus the fall, it's almost like you're in two different places, which you don't get on a lot of ponds. So that was always one of my favorites. You know, I spoiled down in Thomasville, Georgia. There's so many good properties down there. A lot of those are just they're just made for everything we want to do. So it's hard to argue against those. I mean, I love the Mission Valley in Montana. You know, it's not as friendly from a dog standpoint as far as, you know, in the Midwest or the Southeast, you have nice soft grass and the soil's not dry and dusty and things like that. But it's hard to beat the views you get in the Mission Valley with the snow-capped mountain peaks in the background. For the next
while you're thinking of another one, well, if you can't think, you probably talk at the same time, but how did these little like meccas happen? Like, is all that from just kind of like from Lardy setting up different shops, or like, because there's like distinct pockets of the retriever world, you know, like
So the
where you
South,
are now in Madison, like that northern, like central Wisconsin is just huge. Like Charlie Hines told us once, if you want to go run trials, don't go to Wisconsin. You know, that was his whole thing.
yeah, I mean, Mike was kind of here, and then when Andy Attar worked for Mike, and then he set up camp, and Dave Smith, who worked for Mike, set up camp, and there's just so many people in a small area. And it's the climate. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? I mean, Wisconsin, Minnesota. You go to Minnesota, you got Dave Roram and Danny Farmer and Chris Ledford in the summertime, and Steve Ozamp, and I mean, there's just a lot of the climate in Wisconsin and Minnesota is very
Retriever friendly.
You have safe, friendly grounds. You have ponds that'll hold water. You have good climate. So, I mean, that's part of it. Southeast, I think, yes. I mean, Judy Rasmussen, who has a lot of property down there, she was there, and then Mike was there, and then Mike started having clients that would buy a place and develop it, and buy a place and develop it, and it just kind of turned into the Mecca, really, as you want to call it.
Yeah.
So that did have a lot to do with him kind of settling there, and then clients starting to buy stuff around it. And like I said, Judy had some property there when Mike got there, 35, 40 minutes away. And now it's just, turned into, I mean, it's crazy. We used to go to a different place every day of the week. And I mean, one day we would drive 35 minutes to go to Judy's, and the other 4 days a week, we didn't have to go more than 2 miles. And any one of those properties, you'd die for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's cool that you said Charlie's. I got access. We can do that.
Yeah,
Very
no,
cool.
it's just I always liked it, and Charlie was a client for a long time, right? I raised Charlie's dog Mickey that won the 2016 national. Other people probably heard me tell the story before, but I raised Mickey from an 8-week-old puppy. So, Charlie and I have had a really good relationship for a long time, and he let me stay there, and I had my routine. You talk about favorite. I don't know if it was my favorite spot to eat, but I'd roll in there Thursday. I'd feed the dogs, and then, Wilmington's a mile away. I would go get groceries for the weekend, and there was a Chinese takeout right there in the same strip. I'd order my Chinese. I'd walk to the grocery store, get my stuff for the deal, and I'd always get chicken with broccoli, and I'd go back to the apartment.
Maybe not the best.
Yeah, but that was my routine, and of course, I'd say dog trainers are creatures of habit too, right? So, probably the first time I did that, the trial went well, and then it's like every trial I went to Charlie's after that, I did the same thing over and over and over again.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I'm gonna have to go find that Chinese place, and then I'll send you a picture.
And it's been so long. I mean, maybe it's probably still there. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been there.
Not a lot of things change in Wilmington. I'll just say that.
Probably favorite though, we'd do the East Coast trip in the fall, in October, and then you'd be right on the East Coast. Like we'd cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and when you go get some fresh seafood and crab cakes and crab, and Maine last summer for the National Amateur, go to the coast and get lobster. That's got to fall in favorite places to go to eat.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I meant to tell Josh he had a good question. When I read that question, I was like, "Come on, man, food." But anyway, it worked out. You were ready. Very good.
Well, you can't see the rest of me here. I mean, food's a big part. Food's a big part of this whole process.
Of the process, Yeah. All right. So my buddy Blake says he'd love to know how you build, or maybe I guess it's not really a question, but maybe more of a topic: building marking ability and confidence on longer marks.
There's not like one specific drill, I would say. It's kind of a process of starting with younger dogs, and when they start to get good at marking, we start to introduce multiple guns. I'm going to keep them pretty spread out, and I'm going to start to do a little bit longer, the longer one first. So they walk up and they see a real obvious station, and then we're going to pull off of that, and then we're going to find something that's a little bit longer, and we're going to go get that one first. And we're going to start the process of looking past the shorter gun and building the anticipation that we can go get that longer one first. And then as they get older, of course, things get longer and it gets a little tighter. But that's kind of where it starts, really, is making them think from the get go. Like you'll even my puppies will come up and they'll see that short gun and they'll start to look, okay, where's the other one? And just
Mm-hmm.
through that repetition and that they learn there's something else out there and we need to find it. And they'll come up and you'll see them start to scan and start to pick things out. And if I had an older dog, say, I get this a lot from people that have solely done hunt test training. Now they're trying to run qualifying through amateurs, and my dog's not as good at picking up the long gun and all that. So then I would just try to make that long station um, the most obvious, or the most inviting would be a better word. So I might shoot the flyer on the long station, maybe put a flag man out there if to make that look more inviting than the short one. White tape is another good way. I want them to really watch and track birds. So we'll put white tape on longer birds or harder to see birds because it, really just to enhance their picking out. Once they pick it out, they can see it. A lot of field trials, you don't see the bird very well. But in training, if I'm going to hold them accountable for fighting a factor or staying in front of a gun, I want to make sure they saw it. Because I think when all of a sudden they start getting in trouble for things that they didn't really see or they weren't sure on, that's when we start to get that uncertainty and that attitude can deteriorate a little bit. So making sure those stations are obvious, making sure the birds are very visible, birds or bumpers or whatever, white flagging, whatever you need to do. Sometimes you throw two, have a big white bumper out there too. So you throw the bird, they look off, pull them back to it, throw a big white bumper, to just kind of really hold their attention and get them to focus. And starting to create the anticipation that they might have to do that longer one first. Again, I'm not going to like blow them right past the short station, right? So like I'm not going to do a long retired gun off the back of a flyer first. That's just not. That's very going to deteriorate attitude and things like that. But if it's off to the side a little bit, or we're throwing out of the test, or like it's a very routine thing for my dogs or our dogs to come up, sit down, see the short gun, and then say, okay, where's the longer one? And it's through that repetition and anticipation that they're going to go get that bird through doing singles off of the multiple stations and picking up the longer one before you get the shorter one. That creates that anticipation. So they're expecting to go get it and they're going to be better about it.
Good. Yep. I love that answer. All right. So he says, how do you transition from pattern blinds to cold blinds?
So coming off of pattern blinds, then go to blind drills, which is a kind of a marked spot, not as it's a new field, but I would send somebody out there to kind of, hey, flip the bumpers up. The dog kind of sees where you are. I go back in the holding blind. The person drives away, come back up and run that cold. Then put a person out in the field, run the blind again to the same spot. Then they throw a mark, pick up the mark, run it a third time. So it's a little bit of a pattern, but it's in a new place every time. So it's not just like come up and run in the same field. And then you start to see, okay, they get sucked towards the gun. You start to give them that angle cast. And all of a sudden, at some point, the light comes, we'll use attrition. There's not a lot of pressure there. But you give them that angle cast, let's say away from the gun or from that old fall. And then the light bulb kind of comes on that they remember where that blind was. And that's kind of where I start to build that changing direction concept. And then once they kind of do that, then we go back to pattern blinds with diversion. So poison birds off of our pattern blinds. And then it's just kind of multiple cold blinds. You follow them out. If I'm struggling or attitude or whatever, I'll take them for a walk with me when I plant them. Make a big circle around the field, plant the bumpers, and it kind of gives them a sense that they know something's out there, but they don't know exactly where because we didn't walk a straight line to and from anything. Yeah. We just kind of made a circle. They knew I had bumpers. They kind of see you drop them, but by the time you get back to the line, like they know there's something out there, but they don't know exactly where it is. And that kind of can help with attitude. Like that little bit of uncertainty. I've done stuff where, we kind of mark them, send somebody out, hey, flip a bumper, drive to the next spot, hey, so, and then again, you take them off, put them back in the holding blind, come back out. They know something's out there. So that can be kind of a bridge in between. If I have a dog that is a little unsure or uncertain, I mean, if they come out and just kicking up dirt, then I'm just going to kind of follow them out. We're just going to stop and cast and use attrition and just kind of work our way through it. And always multiple blinds for sure. Never do I come out when I'm starting this step and just run one blind and put them away. I mean, we're gonna do 3 or 4. Again, of course, property and temperature, and there's factors, right?
Yeah.
We can't run them on a 4th blind when their tongue's dragging on the ground. But if possible, I'm doing 3 or 4 every time I come up to line. I like to try and start out where they run to the end of the field, so they're not finding a bird 100 yards out, starting to check the hay bales, because we only put them in front of hay bales because it's the easiest spot to do it.
Yeah.
I would rather walk out in the middle of the field to launch from and run to the end if the field's too big. And it's kind of, to me, it helps them. I don't necessarily want to say targeting, but it helps them keep their head up and run to the end of the field. The expectation is when I run to the end, I find something. So that kind of gets them hopefully out of that take off with my head down 50 yards away, expecting to smell something right away.
And that's specifically for blinds, I'm assuming. That's what.
Correct.
Obviously. I mean, I knew that. I just wanted to clarify that for the listeners, that when you're talking about running to the end of the field, you're not
correct
necessarily talking about marks. Could be, but most of the time, that
Yes.
becomes very easy to teach. It's the blinds that are the marks that are 50 yards off the end of the field that are the ones that can get you.
Yeah, no, that was exactly just specifically in correlation with the question about starting blinds after pattern blind.
So do you do all the things that you mentioned, throwing them, like having somebody standing out there running the blind, then throwing the mark? Do you do that? Do you introduce all that in pattern blinds, or is it in the field at the first time that they're seeing that?
The first time they're seeing it is in that blind drill in a new field. But then I come back to the pattern blind field where they know those 3, and then I'll put a person out and start a dry shot or a poison bird.
So you introduce it first into the field, and then you can
Yep.
get more repetition in the pattern blind field. That makes a lot of sense. I know one of my good friends, Clark Kennington, that he goes pattern blinds is where like everything happens for him. So as soon as he can run the pattern blind as a handling drill, then he starts to introduce all the things that you mentioned. So I was just curious where you do it, and I get it makes. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say it's basically the same. It's just maybe one more step in between, but it's the same. I mean, basically, we're talking the same type of. He and I are talking the same type of thing, getting them used to all that different stuff there.
Yeah. Okay, we kind of sort of talked about this, but what young dog work do you do that you think pays the most dividends in the long run of the dog's career? It's probably like everything, but
actually, so we haven't talked about this because this to me starts way before formal training. I think teaching them to be a good citizen when they first come home. I think teaching them. I think steadiness starts with them learning how to wait to go in and out of a kennel, to go in and out of a door, to sit down and let me put your dog food down before then you can eat it when I tell you it's okay. Just learning how to respond. When I call you, you don't get to run away and then it's like, oh, never mind, I didn't really mean that. Or teaching them to sit, or teaching them anything really. I mean, I think that's shaping behavior and shaping their pressure response without actually introducing pressure. So, for example, you grab a puppy and you hold it and it starts to struggle and you let it down. What did you just teach that puppy?
It struggles, it gets down.
Exactly. So
it gets what it wants.
It gets what it wants. So when the puppy starts to struggle, if I'm going to hold it until it stops struggling and then put it down. And I think I mean, I don't have any like direct research or anything like that, but I feel like that kind of shapes that puppy's response to all kinds of things, whether it's pressure related or even stuff online, where it turns into dog that moves around. We correct it and then we send it. We correct it and then we send it. We just teach them the dogs get to where like, okay, stick me or correct me so I can go get this bird. And we don't ever change that pattern of behavior. So I think that starts with puppies, from 8 weeks old until 6 months old. I mean, there's so many things we can do with them at an early age, and basically we're teaching them how to learn, I think. So, the old days of I just, stuck the puppy in the kennel till it was 6 months old and then training starts, I think that is so far outdated. And I've done it, back from Mickey to Trav was another one that I had as a puppy. I mean, they learn how to learn when they're that age, and they learn how to turn off things and how to respond appropriately. And I think that's really where that to me is the biggest thing right there.
Yeah, that's really good. Every hunt tester always goes, well, how do you teach retired guns? That's always the thing that they want to know, because like, well, our guns are always retired, and it's totally different when the gun's exposed and then it's no longer there.
So I'll go on my little soapbox I tell everybody, every seminar I do, I talk about this. If my goal was to only ever run a master, or I don't say only like that's a bad thing. I mean, my goal was to have a master hunter. That was my end game. I would teach dogs through basics and through transition to have white coats and to learn how to target and learn how to pick out guns and learn how to watch birds and not head swing. All those things that we just talked about, learning how to pick out longer guns and watch longer birds and be confident. I would do all that stuff the exact same way. And then once you get through that and they have that, they know how to be helped. They know how to pick out stuff. They can find birds that they may not remember because there's a target there. They learn all the different stuff that way. Then when you take it away, it's easier. If all I ever did was hidden things right from the get-go, and now I'm trying to get them to pick out that 300-yard bird, that's becomes extremely difficult, which I think a lot of people that have tried to go that route would verify. So I would do things the same way I would if I was with a trial dog, white coats, targets, guns, all that sort of stuff. And then we start retired guns when I start puppies when they're marking confidently and they're running at the bird and they're not having a lot of trouble. I'll start to have an umbrella or duck behind a hay bale or a tree or something like that when they're en route. So they're starting to learn retired guns when there's only one person in the field. As soon as they're starting to kind of be confident in their marking and they're being successful, that's when I'm going to start retired guns. And then it kind of just builds from that. Now we have multiple guns, and one's way over here and one's way over here, and this one throws and retires as a single. And that's kind of where that whole process starts from a pretty early age.
Yeah. So what would you say to the folks that, they just got into the game, they didn't do it the way that you're recommending? How would you begin that transition to be able to do, the long retired gun?
I mean, it's going to start with just learning how to pick out the guns, just having guns visible and starting them spread out, almost like you are. To me, I think I would be doing it like I was kind of starting, I wouldn't say it's straight from scratch, but, backing up to where there's a big degree of separation, right? They're not right on top of each other. They're spread out. So this one's here and this one's up here. And now, like, it's a big swing, and now we can be successful when we see that one. Throwing to, do that with young dogs some too when we're trying to stretch them out, right? The dog's en route, and you throw a second or third bird, call a fire drill, to get them to keep driving out to those longer stations. So if I had an older dog that was inexperienced, that would spread things out more, again, make sure they're very visible, white tape, when the dog comes up to line, you can have the gunner start waving or yelling or trying to get their attention to get them to just look out there long. And then when they get focused, shoot it and then throw 2 or 3 along the way and really get that dog to just keep driving out. And it really doesn't take a long time of that, and you're going to see a difference on them coming up, picking out those longer guns and being willing to drive all the way out to them.
Yeah. Good. Great answer. We'll do 2 more. What does a training week look like in between field trials for you guys? When you maybe not now, but like what was it like when you were working with Mike and all those guys?
So a little bit would depend on age of the dog. Were they double staked the weekend before, meaning open and amateur? How far did they go? Did they go out in the first series of both? Did they finish both? A dog that probably went 7 or 8 series over the course of the weekend is probably going to have Monday off. And then Monday for the rest of the dogs would be a fairly routine day. I'm not trying to go out on Monday and fix what went wrong on Saturday or Sunday, because I think that only highlights, we could talk about this for another hour. Trying to minimize the difference between what training and a trial or a test are like, right? So if all I ever do it in training is, a pistol and bumpers and it's only me and there's no drag back and there's none of that stuff. First time we go to the test and there's duck calls and popper guns or boom tubes and flyers and all that excitement. And now we go up to a holding blind on lead. And if the first time that stuff happens is at a test or a trial, they learn real quick the difference between training and testing or trialing. And to me, it has nothing to do with the collar being on or not. It has all to do with that environment. So trying to minimize the difference between training and trialing or testing, I think, is a big part of keeping that dog so it runs the same way during the week as it does on the weekend.
Yeah. So you would, like on a Monday, you try to get 3 gun stations out there.
Yes.
Maybe now, do singles, but
a lot of times actually Monday was a triple. It was nothing.
Really?
It wasn't like an advanced concept. It was trying to not highlight the difference between, we just did a water quad on Sunday, and now you're going to come up and I'm going to correct you to watch that long single first, like we were talking about. That to me is another thing that highlights that difference between when you're in training and when you're at a trial. So we might do a multiple, maybe it's singles, but it's not like a critical head swinging test, or I'm not going to come up and set up a poison bird blind. They picked up the poison bird on Saturday, so now I'm going to come up Monday and cream them for going for a poison bird or not casting off a point or something like that. Monday is going to be fairly routine. Doesn't mean I'm going to overlook a bad behavior or something like that, but it's going to be set up to be fairly routine, fairly successful as long as the dog's giving me a little bit of effort. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be now let's try to work on what we saw the problem was. And then Thursday is going to be that's going to be singles, bird watching, mark sharpening, change direction, stuff like that. And then we go back into the trial on Friday. If I had one more day if I was doing the hunt test and it was only Saturday, Sunday, then I think that would give me, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to kind of pick on what I thought we needed to pick on or address something that came up the weekend before. But Monday and Thursday, Monday's usually kind of like a little bit similar to the trial, but not really hard where I'm expecting to get in a lot of trouble. And then the day before is broken down singles, sharpening them up, trying to get them, ready.
Is that like a lot of times that's confidence, or what? When you say sharpening, what do you mean?
So doing them as singles, so they have they're more apt to run right to it. But I would do, we do short retired guns where they'd have to look for them a little bit. I kind of wanted them to be successful, but still have to work a little bit, So it's hard to just say exactly, do this
Yeah.
configuration or whatever, but it's kind of, we'd almost always start with a little bit of on Thursday would be, we'd have a flyer station out in the field and they'd have to do a single first somewhere else, a longer single first, like we're talking about for bird watching. And then a lot of times I'd shoot that flyer and pull them off and run a blind. And then we'd come back and we'd pick up the flyer and then we'd finish with another, probably a shorter or another retired gun somewhere that they could, run out and be successful at, have to maybe work a little bit. So kind of sharp, like I didn't want them just running out there on like sometimes on a memory bird, they go out there and they don't find it and they just run around, head up fast as they can until they stumble on it. Thursday, I kind of wanted them going in with a intention or a purpose of, I know where this bird is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I guess I mean by the sharpening part of it.
Yeah. So you said, doing some sort of diversion on the flyer. What, like, I have heard some folks don't let their dogs pick up the flyer first. Like they have to do something else, some sort of level of obedience, or, even if it's just obedience, even picking up another mark is going to be an obedience thing in that case. Like, is that something that you guys did a lot of?
Correct. 100%. And that's why, that flyer gun, and we would have the flyer gun stand up with the gun and the bird in their hand and make them do that other single first. And so that's part of flyer denial. And then shooting the flyer and pulling them off and running a blind, it's just more discipline around the flyer. That's their candy. That's their bread and butter. So things that we can do to make them pay attention to other guns, other birds, have some discipline. Like it doesn't land in the cut field and you just get to run out there and scoop it up like, scot-free. Like you're going to have to work a little bit to get it. So that's kind of flyer discipline, and flyer denial is kind of was a big part of it. And I would say, and again, we can go on this for a little bit, but if the flyer, so often in a test or a trial, the flyer is the shortest bird. Mm-hmm. In training, if the flyer was the shortest bird in the test, they never got to come up and pick that up first. Like mm-hmm. When they first sat down on the mat, they did not get the flyer shot as the last bird down if it was the shortest bird in the test. Now, if it was the longest bird or a longer bird, then I was okay with it. But if you have a short flyer in training, they did not get to, the first time they sat on that mat, they did not get to go get that bird right away.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Anything else you want to share about anything like that whole week before or the flyer? I feel like you said you could talk for an hour, so I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, dog dependent too, right? So if I have fire-breathing dragon, that's, you just want to make sure we're on the same team. I'm going to probably make things harder during that week and potentially challenge them more. If I have a dog that's a little more sensitive, or I feel like is going to run better, being more confident, we might break things down more that week. In general, I would say throughout the whole scope of training, 25% of the marking tests we did were done as straight singles. 25% of the marking tests we did were done as full multiples, and 50% of the tests were kind of broken down, meaning it was a single and a double, or a double and then a single, or just some sort of deal where all the birds weren't shot at the same time to start with. But that kind of, again, that goes a lot off of the dog. I had plenty of dogs that it was like, man, you just kind of want to keep your thumb on them and make sure they're remembering this as a team sport. So we would challenge them more. Or you might come up and run a blind, just pull off and run a blind first with the guns out in the field, and just kind of things to keep them guessing a little bit, where some of the more sensitive or dogs that I felt like ran better when they were more confident, it was maybe more singles. And, they're not going to run at their peak all year long. So trying to balance that of what can get them to that level you want, especially like going into a national or going into the Master National or the Grand or something like that. You gotta you learn your dog over the course of time, and then you want to do going into a trial or especially a national event, trying to set them up to be the most successful that you can.
Yeah, and I've learned that changes with age too a lot. Like the dog that I've had some success with, when she was a puppy, man, she was a fire-breathing dragon, and it was just like when we passed our first grand, it was all about cranking her down.
Mhm.
just stay here, please. Just you can do everything else, just stay here. And now
Yeah.
it's like, like how like as Sharon says, well, she's old enough to vote now, so just go up there and do it. Like
Yeah.
like just let because at that point it's like they're sleeping before you even open up the crate. You open up the
Mm.
crate and you got to wake them up. All right, come on,
Yeah.
it's time to go work. It changes the time where it's like, okay, I got to get you going now, and then yeah. Anyway, but that was a little sidetrack there, but I had another question, but we've actually answered a lot of the other questions just in that last little talk. But my big question is, do you think Mike's going to be nervous at his first master test with a different breed?
It's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting. I guess I was a little bit nervous just because it was like, you do these seminars and you tell these people the same stuff that I'm telling you now about making sure training a certain way or whatever, and you go up and you're like, man, if I mess this up, they're gonna laugh. They're gonna
You'll
think
never
like,
hear the
see,
end
he
of it.
doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah.
So I would bet there would be a little bit. Just the expectation for him would probably be pretty high. So probably more expectations on himself to do well than anything. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I'm sure you've been asked this question in a podcast, but I feel like it can never be asked too many times. What is like one or two things that you always see amateurs doing that you're like, man, if you guys just focus on this one or two things, you'd be in so much better shape in the long run?
Details. The devil's in the details, really, and that really covers a broad spectrum of things, right? Whether it's lining the dog up or reading momentum or all those different things, but really being cognizant of all that stuff and paying attention to all the little things, like we are talking about, not highlighting the difference between testing and training, bringing them to the holding blind on a lead, just all those little things, making sure you have boom tubes, making sure you use birds and flyers, and those little details, which really probably seem like, well, that's silly. How can you say that that's the most important thing? Well, if you don't do it, it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So all those little details, I think, are, and it's not just amateurs, it's all of us get a little lazy about stuff sometimes. So that's one part of it. And I mean, really focusing on the basics. You know, I can't remember the old saying of, you know, as a beginner, you want to work on advanced things. And as an intermediate, you want to work on advanced things. And as an advanced person, you want to work on the basics. So don't get too wrapped up on all that. Make sure you have everything solid. Make sure they're solid on line, make sure they're solid on their movement and wagon wheels and the no-no drills and the casting drills and all that stuff that you think is monotonous and boring. When you get to that advanced level, that's the stuff that's going to set you apart. The dog that does that stuff in its sleep versus the one that's, you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants and learning as you go. The one that has the basics and has paid attention to those details is going to be set up for success a lot better.
Yeah, very good. Anything else that besides details? I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one for sure.
Practice. I mean, as Ellen Iverson said, practice. You do best what you do most. So if I only do this, I run one dog once a day, once a week, it's hard to be really, really good at it. So getting that repetition and getting those reps in, and just trying to learn and expand your everything. Whether like you mentioned Pat earlier, and you're going to have him on the podcast. I mean, Pat's got a very extensive program for people, online learning and stuff for people. So there's stuff that can be gained from all kinds of different programs, and some of it you might think, man, this makes total sense, and some of it you might say, well, I don't know if that's going to work for me. And that's part of the process and learning your own program. But don't get caught up in, this is my way. I know how to do this. I mean, Pat had an old client, and he'll tell you this when he's on here, but the saying was, when you're green, you're growing, and when you're ripe, you're rotting. So, there's always something to be learned. I mean, I go spend time I'm lucky enough now to have time to be able to do some seminars and consulting with, different kennels or amateur groups or whatever. And I mean, I'm still learning stuff every time I go and meet somebody new and watch some dogs. And, there's no cookie cutter deal that this works for every dog every time. So, being able to try different things and being willing to try different things and think outside the box, and don't just kind of get stuck in your own rut, I think is another thing that people do all the time.
Yeah. I did a podcast with Bill Hillman and then Ron Anderson last, and I was thinking about how, because everybody does things a little bit different, but if you break down what the dog is learning at kind of chunks of time, it's all the same. And people just have different ways of teaching the dogs these certain basic skill sets that they have to learn. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I could figure out a way to just break that part down and ignore the drill and the technical part of it, or the how you do it, but just help people understand they have to understand how to select a pile and go to that pile. They have to understand how to stop crisply. They have to understand how to change directions, to go and break it down that way. And then just say, once you understand that, because I think a lot of amateurs miss that part. I mean, it does take a few dogs sometimes to start to see how that all lines up. But if you could break it down that way and ignore the technical drill side of it, I think a lot of the retriever world would be better off. So that's kind of like a pet project in the back of my mind, is like, how can I do that?
Yeah, the end goal is always the same. Exactly right. A dog that's going to sit quietly on line, watch its birds, look stylish, stop crisply, change direction, get in the water. Yeah, you figure out a universal way to do that, and we'll all be.
Well, I just mean to
but
talk
you're
about
right.
it.
Yeah, but no, you're
not the techniques. Like that's,
yeah.
I don't know. I hope you get what I'm saying.
You're 100. I mean, you 1,000% correct. I mean, that's the end goal of everybody's program, and it's just how you reach it and what steps you take along the way. So that's where kind of, being willing to listen to other people's stuff here and there and take the stuff you like and not necessarily the stuff you don't. But no, you're right. You're exactly right. We all want the same end product.
Yeah. Well, Ray, this was awesome, man. I appreciate it. I feel like this stretch of guests I've had have been like just all my heroes. So thanks for being a hero and willing to jump on the podcast. It's been great.
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad for you that I'm one of your heroes, but I appreciate it.
No, you are, and I appreciate the partnership with Purina. It's great. We should have talked about that more at the beginning, but appreciate that partnership, and you guys do so much for all the retriever games and the other games that I don't know anything about. Besides, there's 10,000 people and a lot of good pulled pork. So excited to continue the partnership, and thanks for being on today.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Well, for sure.